You ever be in a room full of family and still feel like you're the only one who sees what's really going on? It was a Saturday late afternoon. That kind of moody fall light, orange but already fading. The kind that makes the whole world look like it's holding its breath. I was in the kitchen stirring the candied yams, wearing my dark indigo blouse and soft black slacks with my favorite gold earrings, the wide hoops my husband once said made me look expensive. My gray hair was pinned back neat in silver barrettes, just the way I liked when I was feeling sharp. We were having one of those forced family dinners Tasia always insisted on, the kind where it feel like everybody showed up out of guilt, not love. Her house always smelled like she lit too many candles just to cover up the smell of old takeout. There was lemon cleaning spray and something burning in the oven. I could already tell the chicken was dry. Ania was sitting at the end of the couch, knees to her chest, oversized gray hoodie swallowing her whole little frame. I don't ever like to judge quick, but something about how she was sitting didn't feel right. She wouldn't look nobody in the eye, not even me. She stayed holding that doll I gave her on her 5th birthday, the one with the lavender dress and the frizzy yarn hair that looks like hers. All this noise in the room, laughter, plates clinking, wine glasses, but my baby girl looked like she was in a whole different house. Eyes low, barely blinking. My stomach twisted. I asked her gently, "You all right, baby?" She just nodded once, but didn't say a single word. It was when she reached to scratch her arm that I saw it. Just a flicker. Hoodie slipped back for half a second. Bruise, right there on her forearm. Faded but not old. Yellowish but still tender by the way she flinched and pulled her sleeve down real fast when she saw me looking. I didn't say nothing, yet. Just went back into Tasha's kitchen and stared at that pot of overcooked yams like it had the answers I needed. Now I know bruises can happen. Kids get knocked around sometimes just playing. But Ania ain't clumsy. She ain't wild. She's a quiet girl, careful, observant, like she always watching everything from the back of the room. And just as I was about to step back in the living room, I heard Tasia laughing too loud. That kind of performative laugh that's just a little too sharp. I peeked and saw her pouring Marcus another glass. My boy was already on his 3rd. That's when I noticed something else. Tasia kept looking at Ania, not like a mama looks at her baby. No, like you'd look at a visitor that overstayed their welcome. I didn't say it out loud, but in my bones I felt it. Every child can tell when they ain't wanted. And every grandma can feel when her blood is drowning in a house full of sharks. I called out, "Ania, come here, baby. Ride with me to the store. I need some cream for the sweet potato pie." Tasia jumped in too fast. "Oh no, she's fine, I can go." I looked her dead in the face and smiled polite, but cold. "I didn't ask for you. I asked my grandbaby." Marcus waved his hand like it was nothing, already halfway toasted. "She's fine, Ma, let her stay." But I just held out my hand to Ania. And y'all, she came to me like she'd been waiting all evening for that moment. In the car, we were halfway down the block when I glanced over and she was staring at her hands in her lap. I reached for the radio dial to cut it down, but before I could speak, she whispered something. So soft I barely caught it. I heard her say she wishes I'd just disappear. I turned and looked at her, but her eyes were wet, still stuck on her fingernails. "Who said that, baby?" She shook her head, lips sealed, then slowly said, "It's always me she yells at when Daddy's not home." My hand gripped the steering wheel so tight I felt the leather crease under my palm. I pulled into the parking lot, cut the engine off, and just sat there in the quiet. The sun had dipped lower, orange fading into gray. The light made everything feel hollow. She kept her head down, and then, in the softest voice I ever heard from a child, she looked up and said, "If I told on her, would you still love me?" I could have cried right then and there, could have wailed in that car with the glove box rattling and the engine ticking warm, but I didn't. I looked at my granddaughter, and in the strongest voice I could muster, I said, "Baby, they thought I was just the grandma, but I promise you, after tonight, I'm going to be the storm." She blinked at me real slow, then nodded once like she didn't even know what she needed to hear, but somehow those words filled the hole. I didn't take her back to that house. called Marcus, cold and clean, said, "She's spending the night with me." He didn't argue. He didn't ask why. That's what tells you everything you need to know. Later that night, with Ania asleep under my comforter, wrapped in my husband's old college hoodie like a blanket, I sat in my kitchen with the lights off, thinking, trying not to imagine what else had been said to her, what else had been done. Now I ain't out here trying to take nobody's child. I know how sticky family can get when one person says too much. But this ain't that. This ain't smiles and silence anymore. This is war. And that bruise wasn't just a bruise, that was a message. And baby, I got the message loud and clear. Because what happened next? Child, it opened up a whole world of truth I never saw coming. But let me tell it right. Because the mess that came next, oh, it was darker than I ever imagined. When I was a young mama, before my knees ached and my patience ran smooth like butter from age, I used to tell myself that if I just loved everybody hard enough, they'd stay good. That all you had to do was pour, and somehow the cup would never turn over. But cups spill, and when they do, folks don't pick them up. They just step over your mess like it don't matter. It's easy to forget that when you get older, when the love you gave out long ago starts leaking back to you in strange, broken pieces. Tasia was never cruel, not outright. She was polite in that southern way, smiled long enough to get what she needed, said thank you like it came with a price tag. When Marcus brought her home, I tried. Lord knows I tried to welcome her. I made sweet tea with extra lemon and opened up the picture albums. She liked stories with names she could laugh at, stories without weight. But she never asked about my husband, never once said his name. I should have known then she was only trying to be a wife, not a daughter-in-law, not a mama, not part of the soul. She was all edges, shiny, polished, but sharp if you leaned close. Marcus, my baby, he just wanted peace. He always did. The kind of peace that sounds like silence, not like joy. I watched over time how he'd give one-word answers if she snapped, how he flinched if her tone changed. And when Ania came, it was like they were facing a mirror neither of them asked for. I remember that hospital room. Tasia was quiet, too quiet. She kept saying how tired she was, how nobody told her labor would be like all that. The nurse handed me Ania before she ever did. She didn't reach for her own baby. I stayed the night in the chair, humming old hymns in the dark, praying for softness to find my grandchild before the world did. As the years passed, I noticed the little things. Little things folks like to say, ain't nothing but parenting. But I ain't new to this. Tasia never once did bedtime stories. She called them annoying habits. She didn't do brushing edges or checking backpacks, said she was too tired after work. And Marcus? Always in a meeting, always working late. He installed a whole home office so he could escape not just his job, but his child. Tasia would drop Ania off with me most weekends, sometimes without notice, just a knock and a bag. Hey, Mama, oh, she's gonna sleep at yours. Didn't ask if I had plans. Didn't ask if my back was hurtin'. Didn't ask if I had groceries. She knew I'd say yes, because I always said yes. None of this would have bothered me if I didn't notice the changes in my baby girl. Ania used to smile in her sleep, little dreamy curls pressed against her pillow. But one night, maybe last summer, she started waking up gasping, clinging to my sheets. She couldn't tell me why. And then came the drawings. Swirls of gray and black crayon, little figures on paper with no faces. Locked doors, rain clouds inside bedrooms. Nobody else saw it. Nobody else looked. I tried to say something once, gently, to Tasia. Said, maybe you ought to check in with her school counselor. She's seeming a bit low lately. But Tasia flipped her lashes and said, children get moods too, Mama O. Don't go diagnosing off one coloring page. And just like that, she dismissed years of knowing, years of watching, years of being the only one who actually looked into that baby's eyes. I ain't a doctor, but I know when a child's soul is limping, and Ania was limping something terrible. Clothes always clean, house always organized, but underneath, trash was hidden in closets, mold in the fridge when I visited. Tasia wore those workout sets like she lived at the gym, but never broke a sweat for her own daughter. I once saw Ania open a yogurt herself at age 7, spoon it until the bottom, wash it out in the sink, and throw the wrapper away. When I asked her why she did all that on her own, she just said, Mama said if I make a mess, I'm selfish. Selfish. I don't know what cracked in me when I heard that, but honey, something turned. It wasn't loud, it was clean, silent like a rope snapping in water. I started writing little things down after that. Not to be dramatic, but because I couldn't shake the thought. What if I forgot it later, and Ania needed me to remember? The first note read, March 3rd, she asked if bad thoughts make you bad too. Another one, April 17th told me she hides her report card because it gives Mama headaches. I kept writing. Another entry said, June 2nd, bruised knee, said I shouldn't have asked twice. Now I know what folks'll say. That don't prove abuse. That ain't no courtroom-worthy evidence. I know that, but this wasn't about court. This was about Ania. This was about me seeing it before I lost the chance to act. One afternoon, while folding laundry at their place, Tasha had asked me to help tidy up while she ran errands. I picked up Ania's little hoodie, and a note fluttered out the pocket. On a scrap of wide-ruled notebook paper, Ania had written, When I'm invisible, it's easier for her to like me. I sat on the floor right there in that beige laundry room, hands shaking. That's when my soft started turning to fire. I carried that paper in my wallet for 3 weeks without saying a word. But the night I found that bruise on her arm, the same night Ania whispered in my car, Would you still love me if I told? I went home and pulled out that note. Stared at her little crooked handwriting until my eyes burned. There comes a time in every woman's life when she stops asking for permission to care deeply. That night, I stopped asking. I picked up the phone and called a counselor. Told them I wasn't sure what was wrong, but Ania needed to be seen. Asked if I could make the appointment myself, since her parents weren't doing nothing. They told me I could only schedule if I had legal involvement. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just grandma, I was legally no one. I couldn't step in. I couldn't speak up. I couldn't fix it. All I had was time, love, and truth. But baby, you give a grandma just those 3 things? That's enough to light a fire under the whole world. And it started with that note. That little crumpled paper that told me my grandbaby been shrinking herself just to stay safe. I kissed her forehead when I got home, put the note back in the wallet, and I told the Lord out loud, Keep watching, Lord. I'm about to cross some lines. Because if the truth don't come politely, it's about to come loud. And next time, it won't be just me watching. It'll be the whole damn town. And this story, it's just getting started. They always say the Lord sees everything. But sometimes even the Lord gets tired of watching people pretend they didn't see it too. 3 days after Ania came to stay with me, Tashia finally texted, not called, texted, Tell Ania her tablet's still here. Also, she has a dentist next week. That's it. No, how is she? No, can I speak to her? Just logistics, like she was asking about lost luggage. I didn't respond. I was too busy watching that child slowly grow herself back into her own skin. The first night with me, my baby soaked in that tub for 45 minutes straight. Not playing, not humming, just laying still. Like water kept her safe from something on land. When I knocked gently and asked if she was okay, she said, I just like being by myself for a little while. Nobody asks me questions here. She didn't know I was the one asking, and I didn't correct her. The next night I walked past her while she was drawing. She didn't hear me come in. She was sketching pictures of staircases. Each one led to a locked door, and a little stick figure at the bottom, chest rising like it was about to speak, but hadn't quite found the nerve. I slowed my voice and asked, Who lives behind the door, baby? She jumped, then looked up. Just someone louder than me. You ever have your heart break without making a sound? It don't shatter. It splits quiet. A seam inside that opens, and you can feel the coldness sneak in. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat up with chamomile tea, and the note still folded in my wallet like it was evidence in a crime scene. Maybe it was. Maybe I'd been collecting clues this whole time and only just realized the house was on fire. So I did what any grandmother with no legal power does. I got curious. Next morning, I borrowed Ania's little iPad under the excuse of charging it in my room. She didn't mind. She didn't know it was me who needed recharging because my nerves were cooked from worry. I thumbed through some of her open apps. Roblox, ArtPad, YouTube for Kids. But when I checked the text app, Google Chat or something childlike, I saw messages. Not many. Just a handful of convos between her and a name saved as TT. No last name, no photo. But one message stood out like blood on snow. Don't tell her nothing or she'll take away weekend breaks again. Sent 2 weeks ago, Anya replied. I didn't say anything last time. She still yelled. Next message. That's 'cause you keep looking sad around Grandma. She notices a lot. A lot, just like that, all one word. Then silence for a few days. Then, just act happy, it ain't that hard. My throat ran dry. I took a screenshot. Then another. Message after message. Things about walk normal and don't touch the back door, and she told Daddy you was rude again. This wasn't regular sibling talk. And it wasn't Tasia. This was somebody else, somebody older. Then it hit me. Tasia's teenage niece. The one they let babysit sometimes. The one Marcus said was just a helper. My hand sat frozen above the screen. Because the way this girl talked, like she was a middle management warden and Ania was a worker who better not step wrong. I put the iPad down gently and turned to my own phone. Then I did a thing I said I'd never do. I called Marcus. No text, no email. I called, and he answered. His voice cracked with tension the moment he said, hello. I didn't waste time. Marcus, who is TT? Silence. Then he exhaled too long. You went through the iPad. She lives in my house now, I said, and I ain't blind. He paused, then said, you can't make something out of nothing, Ma. That girl, the niece, she's 17. She helps out, that's all. Does she talk to Ania like it's her prison shift? It's not like that. Did you read what she wrote? It's between them. You're overstepping. Overstepping. That one word turned my whole blood hot. I don't remember putting the phone down. I don't remember standing up. I just remember my body saying, enough, and my soul nodding back. I called a friend of mine who worked at a family legal center, Miss Vera. She'd worked there 16 years. She once helped a neighbor of mine get guardianship of her cousin's little boy after something similar went down. I told her everything. She didn't gasp, didn't dramatize. She just said, you need to document everything. I have, I said, pages, messages, notes. Start printing it, start recording, start being wise. That day I bought a little voice recorder off Amazon, pressed record every time Tasia or Marcus called. Oh yes, they started calling then. Not 'cause they missed Ania, but because they started getting nervous. First it was, when's she coming back? She's got school stuff. Then it shifted to, we already made our schedule for the next month. She can't just stay with you. Then turned into, you're trying to steal our child from us. I never raised my voice. Not once. Just said, Ania doesn't want to come home yet. And something tells me you already know why. One night, one I ain't never gonna forget, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Something in my bones said this ain't for nothing. I picked up and didn't say a word first. All I heard was breathing. Then a muffled voice whispered, she be mean all the time, like slap the hand mean. Click. I don't know who it was, but it didn't matter. Because the next day, I printed everything. Notes, screenshots, message logs. I created a manila folder the size of a phone book. I walked it straight to the child welfare office, didn't sign in like I was ashamed, slapped it on the desk, and said, my name is Ora Mae Hatcher. I'm here because every adult in that house calls themselves a parent, but I'm the only one who's been parenting. The woman at the desk blinked, stood up slowly, and said, yes, ma'am, come with me. It wasn't fast. Nothing ever is when it's supposed to be justice. But I had lit the match. The caseworker came that Friday, did a surprise walkthrough, spoke to Ania alone for 45 minutes. When she came out, her face was unreadable. I asked gently, is she okay? The caseworker said, she's smart, observant, very quiet. That's a hard combination. What did she say? The woman looked at me for a long moment. She didn't say much, she finally said. But she didn't have to. Her silence said enough. I took 3 steps back to my table, sat in my chair, and closed my eyes. That night, I sat beside Ania while she drew another picture. She had painted a door again, but this time it was open, and the shadows inside were leaving. She didn't even realize it while she painted. But I saw it. Something had cracked wide, and I knew the next chapter would be the one I'd been waiting for. I had the receipts. I had the voice. And I was no longer afraid to use either. Let them say I'm too extra. Let them say I stirred up drama. But when they find out what's really inside those walls, oh, baby, they about to wish I stayed just the grandma. They say storms come with warnings. But this wasn't a storm anymore. This was Judgment Day. The caseworker called the next week. Her voice was soft, like fear dressed in kindness. Ms. Hatcher, we're moving forward with a supervision order. My fingers curled around the phone. And what does that mean exactly? It means, until there's an official custody review, Ania can stay in your care. Her parents will be under mandatory observation during their visitations. I exhaled so slow it felt like my soul was trying to release pressure. And when will they find out? She paused. They already have. The line went quiet, but I knew. I knew exactly what time trouble would show up at my door. That evening they came, not separate, together. Marcus in a wrinkled polo, pacing like his skin didn't fit no more. Tasia in black everything, black coat, black hair wrap pulled all the way down, black lipstick like war paint. Her face looked like power walking into Pity's house. I didn't open the door right away. Let it knock again. Let him feel silence ring for once. Then calmly I turned the lock and opened halfway. Tasia's bracelet-laced hand pushed the door wider before I could say hello. "So this is where you hide her," she said, stepping inside without invitation, scanning my home like she was looking for signs of weakness. "She's not hidden," I said. "She's home." Marcus didn't make eye contact. Never does when his guilt jumps first. "Mama, what are you doing?" he asked. I looked my son in the eye for the first time in what felt like years. "You ever wonder what it feels like," I said slowly, "to have your own child watch storms come toward you, and instead of helping, he closes every window and hides?" He flinched, didn't answer. Tasia crossed her arms hard. "This is about control, isn't it?" she spat. "You never liked me. You hated that I got your son. Now you think you can take my daughter?" "She ain't your taking, Tasia. She's a person, not your status symbol. I take care of her." "You feed her," I snapped. "You dress her. You snap at her when she blinks wrong. Don't confuse resource management with love." The room went cold. She stared at me. "You don't know what it's like living day in, day out with a child who won't talk back, who won't respond, who hides in corners like she's allergic to people. That girl been strange since birth." And there it was. The rot. The part she never said out loud before. "You callin' my grandbaby broken?" I said, fists clenched. "I'm saying I ain't the only reason she's quiet," she hissed. "You gave her that. All your cooing and spoiling. You made her soft." My voice dropped. I didn't make her soft. I made her safe. The fact that you see a softness and don't know how to handle it, that ain't a reflection on her. That's on you. She didn't blink, just turned to Marcus. "Say something." He looked at me, looked at her, back at me. I didn't know it got this bad. I laughed once, bitter. "You didn't know because you didn't wanna. You looked away every time." He stepped forward then. "This doesn't have to be like this, Ma. Whatever you turned in, we can settle it. No courts, no drama, just bring her home." I raised an eyebrow. "You'd trust her in your care again?" He looked away. "That child," I said, voice lowered, pointing toward Anaya's room down the hall. She begged herself invisible in that house. She bruised in silence. She wept in shadows. And you want to negotiate peace like this is a business deal? No one answered. I kept going. "I got recordings," I said gently, "of both of y'all, of belittling, of threats, of that teenage girl y'all left in charge like some discount nanny." Tasia's eyes widened then. "What recordings?" Marcus swallowed. "You recorded us?" I didn't respond, just moved toward my purse and tapped the recorder in my coat pocket. Killed the silence with soft truth. "You see, I got tired of hoping y'all would tell on yourselves, so I gave y'all the mic." Marcus turned suddenly, fists clenching at the sides. "You had no right. No right to protect your child?" I spat. "No right to collect the very words that broke her apart?" He backed down. Tasia didn't. She stepped close, toe to toe. "You're gonna pay for this, old woman. You just wait." I tilted my head, smiled. "You're not the first snake I've seen wrapped in lace-front wigs and dollar store perfume, but you might be the ugliest inside." I called softly over my shoulder, "Ania, baby, stay in your room, all right?" Her bedroom door clicked shut right after. That click was my cue. I raised my voice finally. "You don't get to come into my house and try to shame me into silence. You don't get to twist your cruelty into motherhood and shove it in my living room. From now on, every visit with that child happens under supervision. Every call goes through family monitoring. and if you so much as utter one manipulative syllable in court, I will bury you in your own words." Marcus whispered, "Mama, stop!" But I wasn't a mama in that moment. I was a wall. Tasia was red-faced, panting. "You're just bitter." I smiled, calm. "Maybe I am, but bitterness got me here safe. Bitterness poured into strategy as protection, baby. Remember that." They stood in my foyer a beat too long, then turned and left without saying goodbye. Front door swung shut like guilt landing hard. I stood quiet in the stillness, then turned toward the long hallway. Ania stood at the very end, clutching her doll, face pale but steady. "You heard all that?" She nodded once. I crouched down low, wrapped her in both arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. They're mad at you." "I don't care." She dug her face into my shoulder. "You're not just the grandma, you're my shield." That line undid me. I held her harder than I've held anything in my life. Because she's right. I was the shield now. Let the court hear Tasia's voice shake. Let the evidence roll in. Let them try to pretend their words weren't wounds. I had crossed the line. I just wasn't sure yet where the path would take me. But I knew this. I was finally done being afraid. And they were finally scared of me. It didn't happen overnight. Anya didn't wake up one day singing gospel songs and painting sunshine. She still curled tight under the covers at night, like her ribs didn't trust the air. She still hesitated before asking for juice, like every request might cost her something. But slowly, life started pouring back into her bones. The first change came one morning when I was washing dishes. She slid into the room real quiet, took the rag from my hand without being asked, and helped dry the forks. Didn't say a word, didn't smile, just stood beside her grandma, shoulder to elbow, like she had finally remembered what stillness without tension felt like. That night I cried into my pillow, not loud, just wet with relief. And that was the beginning of the climb back home. The courts wrapped things up 2 months later. Joint custody, supervised visitation only. Mandatory parenting classes for both Marcus and Tasia. The judge looked at me, papers in hand, and said, "Ms. Hatcher, you have done an enormous justice, not through aggression, but through vigilance. The state thanks you. This child thanks you." I didn't smile, didn't cry, just nodded once and folded the papers up slow. Because the justice wasn't for me. It was for the little girl who stopped whispering when her voice finally felt heard. The following weeks felt different. The house didn't creak the same. The plants bloomed. Anya started humming again while brushing her hair. She even left little drawings on the fridge, stick figure grannies and baby birds and sons with the word "safe" written across the top in shaky cursive she'd been practicing. I saved everyone. I changed my wardrobe too. Got rid of old cardigans stretched from years of shrinking myself. Started wearing soft greens and burnt golds, colors with life in them. One morning, I put on a crisp cream blouse and dark jeans, looked in the mirror, and for the first time saw a woman who didn't beg for space. My hair was pressed that day, swept into one thick twist at the side with golden pins. "Peace has a look, baby." And I was finally wearing it. Marcus called, twice. Once to apologize, once more just to check in. I answered both times, quiet but measured. We talked, not deeply but kindly. He said, "I didn't know this version of you." I laughed. "That's because you only liked me soft." He was silent, but that silence wasn't defensive anymore. It was reflective. Tasia didn't call, but she sent an envelope. No card, just a note scribbled on lined paper. I wasn't ready to see myself, but I do now. Thank you for stepping in, even though I made you the villain. No return address. I didn't send one back. Some apologies are meant to be absorbed, not answered. One day, Ania brought me a piece of paper and said, "I want to read you something." I sat at the table, held both her hands, and nodded. She read, "My name is Ania. I'm 8, and I used to think my voice was small, but then my grandma used her big one, and now I feel like I'm growing." Not a poem, not a story, just a truth that needed breathing. I don't think I ever smiled wider in my life. That afternoon, I made peach cobbler from scratch. Not because it was a special day, but because we had become special again. And that was reason enough. I started painting too. One of Ania's teachers had told me at pickup one day, "You seem like someone who could shape colors." Ania beamed beside me like it was true, so I bought a small canvas from the dollar store, some pastel paints, and dusted off my fear. First painting was of a house. Nothing fancy, just a yellow door, open wide, with 2 figures inside. One tall, one small, and a dog that didn't even exist but felt like it should. After I finished it, I pinned it right on the fridge next to Ania's. We called it the safe place. 3 weeks later, I got a message from a local park event, Senior Arts Fair. I signed up. Didn't tell nobody. Just packed my painting, wore my olive green dress, nice fit, not flashy, and stood by my little fold-up easel with proud silence. Ania came late, but when she saw the painting, she ran full speed into my hip, held my waist like she was trying to make sure I didn't float away. And then, the smile. Not mine, hers. That girl had the kind of smile that made strangers stop walking. It ain't just about fixing what's broken. Sometimes it's about giving people space not to break in the first place. That night, I sat in bed with slippers on and Coco clocked on my nightstand, thinking about something. About how they all said I was just the grandma. Just the lady who babysits. Just the couch they sit on when it's convenient. Just the memory nobody asked for. But child, no one fights like a woman who's been underestimated for too long. Nobody protects like a grandma who hears something her spirit can't unhear. For too long, I thought silence was strength. But sometimes, strength is telling the truth. Burning a slow, unstoppable fuse and lighting it anyway. Maybe my story ain't the loudest, but it's real, and it's mine. And if you're still with me after all this, if your heart beat hard somewhere in the middle of that courtroom, or when she whispered, "Would you still love me if I told?" Then maybe this story ain't just mine. Maybe it's ours. Because some of us had to become the warrior when nobody stepped in. Some of us chose truth over tradition. And some of us loved so hard, it made the whole house shake. I tell real stories like this one. True stories about quiet people fighting loud battles. If this one held you close, go ahead and subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if it were your grandbaby? I'm always reading. With love and pride, Ora Mae. I'll see you next week, baby. And until then, stay bold, stay soft, stay watching.